You walk out to the garden in the morning and there it is, the kale you transplanted last week with the leaves chewed down to the stem. The bean row you stake so carefully with the tops gone. The cabbage heads you have been watching fill out all month with the centers hollowed and the outer leaves riddled with small round holes. The squash vine that was strong and green yesterday lying limp on the ground with the stem eaten through at the soil. The tomato you were saving for Sunday supper half gone and soft where something sat and fed on it in the night. You did everything right. You turned the soil. You planted on time. You watered. And something else ate the reward. Most folks fight garden pests the way the garden center wants them to. A bottle of spray for the aphids, $12. A different bottle for the caterpillars, $14. A bag of granules for the slugs, $9. A row cover that tears in one season, $18. Year after year, walking the same aisles, buying the same bottles, watching the same creatures come back to the same rows the moment the spray wears off. And every spring the bugs are back. The slugs are back. The aphids are back, the cabbage moths are back, drifting white and soft over your brassicas like they own the place, because as far as they know, they do. Now I want you to sit with this. There is a way of keeping a garden that does not fight pests one bottle at a time. It does not reach for a spray every time something shows up. It is built on a simple understanding that every good Amish gardener knows and that most modern gardeners have never been told. A garden that is built right, planted right, and tended in a few specific ways becomes a place that pests do not want to be. Not because you poisoned it, because you made it hostile to the ones you do not want and welcoming to the ones that eat them for you. My name is Amos Stoltzfus. I am Amish and I farm in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. My family has gardened this same ground for generations without a single bottle of chemical insecticide. Not because we are against modern things on principle, because we learned what works better and we have never needed the bottle. Today I am going to walk you through the methods we use. Not one trick, a system. The companion planting, the trap crops, the soil health habits, the physical barriers, and the natural sprays that cost almost nothing and that together make a garden that largely takes care of its own pest problem year after year. Before I go further, for the folks who want all of this, every method I have shown on this channel and the ones I have not gotten to yet, all in one place, I have put it together in a book at my website, amosstoltzfus.com. I will not push it again in the video. If you want it, it is there. Now let me show you the methods, and I will be honest with you right at the start, the way I always am. The title says forever. The honest farmer who is teaching you says this. A well-built garden system reduces your pest pressure dramatically, season after season, and over several years of consistent practice, most folks find the problem nearly disappears from the crops they used to lose every year. That is what forever means in plain farm English. Not that a single aphid will never land on your rows. That the system is working quietly all summer long, so that no single pest can take hold long enough to matter. Honest is more useful than impressive. And once you see it work across a full season, you will not go back to the bottle. Stay with me. Let me first tell you the one thing that changes how you see the whole problem. Because once you understand it, everything I am about to show you makes simple sense. A pest problem in a garden is almost never just a pest problem. It is a symptom. It is the garden telling you something is out of balance. A healthy, diverse, well-fed piece of ground has natural predators living in it and around it that keep the pest populations in check. Ladybugs eating aphids, ground beetles hunting slugs and cutworm eggs in the soil at night. Parasitic wasps, the tiny ones most folks never notice, laying their eggs inside caterpillar larvae so the caterpillar never hatches. Lacewings eating aphid colonies down to nothing. Spiders taking the leafhoppers. Birds working the rows for grubs. The whole ecosystem, if you let it, is a pest control system more sophisticated than anything the garden center sells. The problem is that modern garden practice, the bare-tilled soil, the single-crop rows, the chemical spray that kills everything that moves, has broken that system. The spray kills the aphids, and it kills the ladybugs. The next week, the aphids are back, because aphids reproduce faster than ladybugs. The ladybugs are gone. So you spray again, And the cycle runs forever, getting worse each year as the natural predators disappear and the pests develop resistance. The Amish way is the opposite move. Instead of killing everything and starting over every spring, you build the conditions that bring the predators in and keep them there. You give them shelter. You give them food sources beyond the pests themselves. You plant things that confuse the pests and things that lure them away from what you want to protect. You build the soil so your plants are strong enough that a reasonable amount of pest pressure does not matter. A strong, well-fed plant can lose 10% of its leaves to insects and keep producing. A weak, hungry plant in poor soil loses 10% and collapses. That is the whole philosophy. Build the system. The system does the work. Now, let me show you the methods one at a time. The first method, and the foundation of everything else, is companion planting. This is the practice of growing certain plants next to each other because one of them protects the other. Not folk superstition. There is real chemistry behind it, and the agricultural research stations have confirmed what the old farmwives knew by practice for 200 years. Here is how it works. Many garden pests find their target crop by smell. The cabbage moth finds your cabbage by the chemical the cabbage leaves put into the air. The carrot fly finds your carrots the same way. The aphid finds the rose by smell. Now, if you plant a strong-smelling herb or flower right next to the target crop, the smell of the companion plant confuses the pest. The signal it is looking for gets mixed into a larger smell picture and the pest flies on past. Sometimes the companion plant outright repels the pest because its smell is one the pest finds hostile. The combinations the old Amish gardeners have used for generations are these, and they are the ones the research has confirmed. Basil planted among your tomatoes. The volatile oils in basil leaves repel thrips, aphids, and the tomato hornworm moth. Plant one basil plant for every 3 or 4 tomato plants, close enough that they touch. The smell umbrella covers the whole row. University trials in both the United States and Europe have shown meaningful reductions in thrips and aphid populations on tomatoes interplanted with basil compared to tomatoes grown alone. Nasturtiums planted at the end of every row of brassicas, your cabbage, kale, broccoli, Brussels sprouts. The nasturtium is what the old gardeners called a trap crop. The aphids love nasturtiums more than they love almost anything else. They flock to the nasturtium and leave the cabbage alone. You let the nasturtium get infested. You do not spray it. It is doing its job. Every aphid on the nasturtium is one that is not on your kale. Once the nasturtium is heavily infested, you pull it out, aphids and all, and put it in the compost away from the garden. The aphids go with it. Plant a new nasturtium in its place and start again. The trap crop sacrifices itself so the crop you care about does not have to. Marigolds, the French marigold specifically, the small bushy kind with the dense flowers, planted around the border of your whole garden and between your rows of tomatoes, peppers, and beans. The French marigold root puts a chemical into the soil called alpha-tertienol that is toxic to nematodes, the microscopic soil worms that attack plant roots and stunt growth. It also repels whiteflies and deters the Mexican bean beetle above ground. Plant them thick at the border. One row of marigolds around the outside of the garden is the oldest and most reliable pest barrier in the old farm gardening tradition. Dill and fennel planted in a dedicated corner of the garden away from your tomatoes because dill and fennel stunt tomato growth when planted too close. But at a distance, they are some of the best insectary plants you can grow. Their flat-topped flowers, what the botanists call umbels, are landing platforms for parasitic wasps, hoverflies, and lacewings, the very predators that eat your pests. A patch of flowering dill in the corner of the garden is a hotel and a feeding station for beneficial insects all summer long. Garlic planted among your roses and around the base of your fruit trees. Garlic sulfur compounds repel aphids, spider mites, and Japanese beetles. Plant the cloves 6 inches apart, all around the drip line of a fruit tree, and the beetles stay away. Tuck a few garlic cloves in with your rose bed, and the aphid pressure drops noticeably by midsummer. Borage planted throughout the garden anywhere you have strawberries or squash. Borage repels the tomato hornworm and the cabbage worm and attracts predatory insects. It also improves the flavor of strawberries when planted nearby, though I cannot tell you the exact chemistry of that. I can tell you it is what my grandmother planted and what Esther plants today, and the strawberry bed next to the borage is always the better one. That is companion planting. No spray, no cost beyond the seed packet. The plants do the work simply by growing where you put them. The second method is the physical barrier, and this is the one that works when you cannot afford to wait for the companion plants to establish themselves or when the pest pressure is simply too heavy for a smell deterrent. Diatomaceous earth is the main tool here. It is a fine white powder made from the fossilized shells of microscopic sea creatures called diatoms. Under a microscope, the particles look like tiny broken glass. To a soft-bodied insect, a slug, a caterpillar, a cutworm, an aphid on the ground, they are exactly that. The tiny sharp edges cut the insect's outer layer, and the insect dries out and dies. To a human, to a dog, to a bird, to a bee visiting a flower, diatomaceous earth is completely harmless. It is, in fact, used as a food additive in grain storage to kill weevils and is rated as food safe by the FDA. You can buy food-grade diatomaceous earth in a 5-pound bag for about $8 or $9 at any farm supply store or online. That bag treats a large garden several times over. The application is simple. Sprinkle a ring of it around the base of any plant you want to protect, about 2 inches wide and a 1/4 inch deep. Any crawling insect trying to reach the stem has to cross the ring, and it does not make it. For slugs, which do their worst damage at night and in wet weather, a ring of diatomaceous earth around your hostas, your lettuce, your strawberries is highly effective. The one honest limitation: diatomaceous earth is dry chemistry. It only works when it is dry. Rain washes it down into the soil and it stops working until you reapply. On a dry week, it is nearly perfect. After a heavy rain, reapply. A light dusting after every soaking rain is the maintenance habit. Keep a small jar of it by the back door. Takes 2 minutes to walk the beds and refresh the rings. The second physical barrier is row cover, and this is worth saying properly because most folks use it wrong. A row cover is a lightweight spun fabric, what the garden supply folks call floating row cover or agribon. You lay it over a row of young seedlings and the fabric lets light and rain through, but keeps flying insects from landing on the plants to feed or lay eggs. The cabbage moth cannot get to the cabbage, the carrot fly cannot find the carrots. The flea beetle cannot reach the arugula. A 20-foot roll of the lightweight grade costs about $12 to $15 and lasts 3 to 4 seasons if you handle it carefully. The mistake most folks make is leaving the row cover on too long. A covered row also keeps out pollinators. So for crops that need pollination to fruit, your squash, your cucumbers, your beans, the row cover comes off once the plants are established and flowering. For crops that do not need insect pollination, your brassicas, your carrots, your greens, the cover can stay all season. Secure the edges with rocks, boards, or metal pins. An unsecured cover that flaps in the wind is doing nothing. The whole perimeter must be sealed against the ground or the cabbage moth simply walks under it, which she will because she is persistent and she has nothing else to do all day. The third method is the garlic and pepper spray, and this is the one you reach for when something has gotten through the companion planting and the barriers and you need to act on a specific infestation right now without reaching for a chemical bottle. The recipe is plain. Take 1 whole head of garlic, break it into cloves, and crush them roughly. Do not peel them. The skin holds oils too. Put the crushed cloves into 2 cups of water and let them steep overnight. In the morning, strain out the garlic pieces and add the garlic water to a full quart of clean water. Add 1 tablespoon of plain dish soap. The soap helps the spray stick to the leaves instead of beating up and running off. Then add 1 teaspoon of cayenne pepper powder or 2 teaspoons of the liquid from a jar of hot peppers. The capsaicin in the pepper is what drives away the soft-bodied insects and the larger chewing pests. Aphids, spider mites, caterpillars, and even some beetles will not feed on a leaf that has been treated with it. Pour the whole mixture into a spray bottle and spray it directly onto the affected plants, coating both the tops and the undersides of the leaves, because that is where the aphids and the spider mites live, the undersides. Now, I know some of you are reaching for a pencil right about now. The 2 cups, the 1 quart, the tablespoon, the teaspoon of cayenne. You do not need to write them down. Every ratio I just gave you is written down plain in the book at my website, the same one I mentioned at the start. So put the pencil down and keep watching, because there is a critical word about what this spray will and will not do that most folks miss. And getting it wrong costs you the very predators you are trying to protect. Now, the honest safety word on the garlic pepper spray, and this is the one that matters. The spray works because it irritates soft-bodied insects. That means it can irritate beneficial soft-bodied insects too. Ladybug larvae, lacewing larvae, the young of many predatory insects, look a great deal like pests on a leaf. If you spray broadly and carelessly, you will drive off or harm the very allies you need. So the rule is this: use the garlic pepper spray as a targeted tool on a specific plant with a specific visible infestation, not as a general weekly spray across the whole garden. Spray in the early morning or the evening, never in the heat of the day when the bees are working the flowers. The bees do not feed on leaves, so a leaf spray does not hurt them. But if you accidentally missed a flower that a bee is visiting, the soap and pepper will harm her. Spray the leaves. Mind the flowers. That is the rule. Also, do not spray the garlic pepper mix on seedlings younger than 3 weeks. Young plants have tender surface cells that the soap can burn. Wait until the plant is established before treating it. The spray keeps for about 1 week in the refrigerator. Make a small fresh batch when you need it. This is not a spray you mix in bulk and keep all summer. The garlic loses its potency and begins to ferment. Fresh is better. The 4th method is soil health, and this is the one that does more for pest resistance than all the others combined over the long run, and the one that nobody in the garden center aisle will ever tell you about because there is nothing to sell you. Here is the plain truth. Healthy soil grows strong plants. Strong plants resist pests the way a healthy person resists a cold. A plant growing in dead, compacted, mineral-depleted soil is a stressed plant. Its cell walls are thin, its chemistry is off, and the insects can tell. The scientific research on this is fascinating and clear. Aphids and other sucking insects are more attracted to plants with high soluble nitrogen in their sap, the kind of nitrogen you get when you over-fertilize with synthetic nitrogen. It makes the plant's sap sweet and easy to process, and the aphids swarm to it. A plant growing in properly composted soil with balanced nutrients and healthy soil biology has thicker cell walls and a more complex chemical profile, and the aphids find it less attractive. This is not folk wisdom, this is plant physiology. So the most powerful pest prevention on any Amish farm is the compost pile. Every kitchen scrap, every garden waste, every manure from the barn, composted and returned to the soil each spring. The compost feeds the soil biology feeds the plant feeds itself from within, and the pests find it less hospitable. The specific practices are these. Add 2 to 3 inches of finished compost to your garden beds every spring, worked gently into the top few inches of soil, not dug deep. The soil biology lives near the surface, and deep digging kills it. Never leave bare soil. Bare soil loses moisture, heats up in summer, and gives no home to the beneficial ground insects, the beetles and the spiders, that hunt pests at night. Mulch every bare patch with straw, shredded leaves, or wood chips. 2 to 3 inches deep. The mulch keeps the moisture in, the soil cool, and the beneficial insects comfortable. Stop tilling if you can. Every time you turn the soil deeply, you destroy the fungal networks and the insect habitat that the beneficial creatures depend on. The old Amish gardeners did not rototill their kitchen gardens. They added compost on top and worked it lightly with a hand fork. The soil stayed structured. The beetles and the spiders stayed in it. The pest pressure stayed low. Rotate your crops every year without fail. Do not plant the same family of vegetables in the same bed 2 years running. The soil pests and diseases that prey on one family of plants, your brassicas, your nightshades, your alliums, build up in the soil where that family has been growing. Move the family to a different bed and the built-up population starves. Come back to the first bed in 3 or 4 years, and the population has collapsed on its own. Crop rotation is one of the oldest and most effective pest management tools in all of farming. It costs nothing. It requires only a simple map drawn on a piece of paper each spring. The fifth method is encouraging the natural predators, and this is the one that makes the whole system self-sustaining once it is running. The predators you want are already in your county. They live in the hedgerows and the fence lines and the unmowed edges of farms. They come to gardens that give them what they need. They stay away from gardens that do not. What they need is 3 things: shelter, water, and a food source that is not just pest insects. For shelter, leave a wild edge, a strip of unmowed grass and native wildflowers along the fence line or the back of the garden. Even a 4-foot strip is enough. Ground beetles, spiders, parasitic wasps, and beneficial flies all live and overwinter in that rough edge. Mow it once a year in late fall if you must, but leave it alone through the growing season. That rough strip is more valuable for pest control than any spray you can buy. For water, a shallow dish of water set at ground level with a few pebbles in it so insects can stand without drowning. Beneficial insects need water, and few gardens provide it. A small bird bath set low near the garden brings the birds in too, and the birds work the soil surface for grubs and caterpillars all day. For the food source beyond pest insects, plant the flowers. This is where the companion planting and the predator encouragement overlap. The parasitic wasps, the hoverflies, the lacewings all need nectar as adults, even though their larvae eat pests. Plant flowers with small, accessible nectar sources near the garden. Dill, fennel, yarrow, sweet alyssum, phacelia, borage. These are the flowers that the beneficial insects land on. A border of sweet alyssum along the front of your garden costs 50 cents in seed and fills the whole bed with tiny white flowers all summer that are covered with hoverflies and parasitic wasps from May to frost. Those wasps are doing work you cannot see, laying their eggs in caterpillar larvae, killing the next generation of pests before they ever hatch. Let the flowers grow. They are earning their keep. For birds specifically, the purple martin and the barn swallow eat flying insects all day. A purple martin house or a pair of swallow nest boxes near the garden puts hunters in the air over your rows from dawn to dusk from May through August. A family of swallows will eat thousands of flying insects a day. I have spoken of this before on this channel. If you have not put up a nest box yet, this is the year. Now I want to take a moment because this is the part that matters. Look at what we have just walked through. 5 methods: companion planting that confuses and traps the pests, physical barriers of diatomaceous earth and row cover that stop them at the plant, a garlic and pepper spray that costs almost nothing and handles the infestations you do get, soil health practices that make your plants strong enough to shrug off normal pest pressure, and the deliberate encouragement of the predators and the birds and the beneficial insects that keep the whole system in balance. Not one bottle of chemical insecticide, not one recurring purchase except a bag of diatomaceous earth every year or two and a packet of flower seed each spring. A garden that, once the system is running, largely tends its own pest problem. Now compare this to the garden center aisle. A spray for the aphids, a spray for the caterpillars, a spray for the slugs, a spray for the fungus gnats. $14 here, $12 there. And the sprays kill the pests for 2 weeks and kill the ladybugs permanently, and the aphids come back because they always do, and you buy again. The garden center makes its money on the bottle, on the fact that you come back every spring needing the same bottle for the same problem you had last spring. There is no money in selling a man a companion planting scheme that costs 50 cents in marigold seed and solves his aphid problem for years. There is no money in telling a gardener to leave a rough edge along the fence, and the beetles and the spiders will handle the cutworms for free. There is no shelf in the garden center for the parasitic wasps that already live in the hedgerow next to his yard, and that would come to his garden if he planted some dill and left them a shallow dish of water. So the old knowledge went quiet. The spray bottle got loud, and a whole nation of gardeners came to believe that a pest-free garden is something you buy every spring instead of something you build once and let run. My grandfather never sprayed a thing on his garden in his life. Esther's mother never owned a bottle of insecticide. The garden behind our house has not seen a chemical spray in my lifetime. The pest pressure is real, the same insects and slugs and caterpillars that any Lancaster County garden has to contend with. But the system keeps them in balance. The marigolds hold the border. The nasturtiums take the aphids. The beetles work the soil at night. The swallows work the air. And the garlic pepper spray handles the rare infestation that slips through. That is a garden that takes care of itself. That is what they mean when they say forever. So here's what I want you to do this week. Pick one method from today and start it now, before the season gets away from you. If you are planting this week, tuck a basil plant in with every 3 tomatoes. Plant a row of nasturtiums at the end of your brassica bed. Scatter marigold seed along the border of the whole garden. These cost you almost nothing, and they begin working the moment they are in the ground. If you have an existing pest problem right now, mix a batch of the garlic pepper spray. Let the garlic steep tonight. Strain it in the morning. Add the quart of water, the tablespoon of soap, the teaspoon of cayenne. Take it out to the garden in the early morning and spray the undersides of the affected leaves. Watch what happens over the next 2 days. And this weekend, take a 5-pound bag of food-grade diatomaceous earth and walk your beds with it. Put a ring around every plant you are worried about, 2 inches wide, a 1/4 inch deep. That ring is working from the moment it dries. Those 3 small things, the companion plants, the spray, the diatomaceous earth, together make a real dent in any garden pest problem within 2 weeks. Not because they are magic, because they are working with the way the garden actually works instead of fighting it with a bottle. Tell me in the comments below, what is the pest that has been worst in your garden? The aphids, the cabbage moth, the slugs, the squash vine borer, the flea beetles on the greens. Tell me which crop you have been losing every year, and we will see between us in the comments what the right combination from today's methods is for your particular problem. I read every single one, and for everything I showed you today written down to keep, the companion planting combinations, the garlic pepper spray ratios, the diatomaceous earth application, and every other garden and household method from this channel, the book is right below in the comments section. Next time, since we have been speaking of keeping the garden healthy from the ground up, I am going to show you the old way my people build and maintain a compost pile that turns kitchen scraps and garden waste into the richest soil amendment there is, in half the time most folks get from their compost pile. The turning schedule, the right mix, the temperature to look for, and the reason my grandfather called good compost the only fertilizer a garden really needs. It is the natural next step after today. Until then, plant the marigolds, mix the spray, and remember that a garden that is built right does not need to be rescued every